Hi, Angus Nation. Josh Baker, your Angus President, giving you a 2026 first quarter update of all things that have been occurring with not only Angus, but your Angus National Office. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about not only covers the last quarter, but probably goes in a little bit deeper in 2025, but just so you have some information about what your association has been up to. Since becoming president, my biggest push has been collaboration between all of the other MSOs, VSOs, that we all operate in the same space. And to that end, hopefully you've seen a lot of the collaboration that we have been working on. So of course we have our collaboration with AUSA and AFA, and of course NAUGUS. But we're also working with America's Warriors Partnership. They were kind enough to invite me to do one of their monthly webinars where I got to talk a lot about what Angus does and how we operate in this MSO, VSO space and how we can leverage what we do in Angus to help other veterans in the community. One of the bigger initiatives that hopefully you've seen during the past quarter was we've had the government shutdown and how that impact our guardsmen, our technician force. And so hopefully you saw a lot of those joint letters go out, whether they were in a combination between NAUGUS and us, or MOAA, or AGAUS and us, where, again, operating in the same space, I believe that we can go farther if we join forces together. And a big push that was announced at our national conference when we were in Reno is our acceptance back into the military coalition. And that has been plugging us even further into our collaboration with like associations where we're getting our name on support letters or other bills. And that's getting us in the room and having conversations with the decision makers. And again, putting the Angus name out front and in the offices of where we need to be to catch the attention of those lawmakers to get our issues in front of them. And since being accepted back into the military coalition, that we actually have a seat on the personnel committee, the membership committee, and a good place for us to be in is the Guard and Reserve Committee. And also announced at our national conference in Reno was the Life Legacy Program. And that was a brainchild of past President Bob Sweeney to find out a way of bringing revenue into the association. So we have a lot of life members that paid their one-time fee, but we never hear from them again, or they're just not contributing. But this provides an option to bring another revenue stream into the association and recognize a lot of our Life Legacy Program members. And we're developing ways that we can recognize them. So when you go to the national conference, there'll be special badging, maybe different colored lanyards, and we're working on developing logos and that will go on shirts and buttons and mugs and things that we can start doing branding with to recognize those legacy life members. Another thing that we're working on building is on our website, having Angus be the clearinghouse of information where a veteran can go to the angus.org website and go to their state and find all of the information in their state for all of their VSOs where they can get information to connect them with their benefits. And lastly, you'll see on the bottom part of the slide, so we finished out the year with 37,456 members, a little bit down from the previous year. And you see the red highlight there. So that's from the states. So the states owe the national office roughly $18,000, and that's in back dues. So states, I'm encouraging you to look at your budgeting and your audit your reports. And if you owe money to the national office, we could use it, please and thank you. During our last quarter, we hired our new legislative director, Nick Weinstein, and he's coming to us with a lot of great experience and a lot of good connections on the Hill that's already starting to pay dividends for EANGUS. So not only is he working on our current legislative efforts that we've had in the churn for a little while, which includes the TRICARE for All bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill Parity Act, and the Richard Starr Act, he's also working diligently on other new EANGUS projects. One that we've successfully come out with, and hopefully you've already seen that, is we're co-sponsoring the Duty Status Reform Act. And we're also very close at introducing a bill that seeks to reform, enhance, and protect technician benefits and entitlements. So I do want to remind the state associations that EANGUS and NIC serves as a resource for you when it comes to your state legislation. So EANGUS can help you with whether it's helping you create your own bill, or if you have legislation that's currently going through your state's legislature, that the legislative committee and NIC can help you decide if you should support or oppose a certain bill. And all you have to do is simply contact Nick at engus.org or our legislative team at legislative@engus.org. And to get after my priority of collaborations between the MSOs and VSOs, I've charged the national office with attending as many different community events or conferences of our partnership organizations as we can get to. So just to name a few that we were able to attend in the past few quarters, we've been to the NAUGUS conference, we've been to AFA's conference, AUSA, and we were lucky enough to attend the Pennsylvania VetCon. I was lucky enough to attend and represent EANGUS at that conference. And if you ever have the opportunity to go, I cannot recommend it enough. The Pennsylvania National Guard Association does it right in how they partner with their state's veteran association, and they put on just a phenomenal program. And with Elizabeth being our director of business development, we've redone her contract. So she does get a percentage of new business as it comes into EANGUS to be a partner with us. And with that, she's already out looking for new business development and looking for new partners. And when you come to our conference, hopefully you'll see new business partners and old ones that have come back to us that have left us for a little while. And to help manage all of those new partnerships, because what we were doing before just wasn't really working on a spreadsheet, that we invested into a new computer system where we can keep track and automate a lot of messaging called DonorView. And that's a program that hopefully you'll start to see and notice because we're integrating it more into our systems. When you register for the national conference, that is a part of DonorView. And if you've registered for the president's or the legislative workshop, that is a program through DonorView. So hopefully that'll help us automate and keep track of a lot more things and be less reliant on our older infrastructure that we've had for EANGUS. And then for our marketing and media side of EANGUS, for the past few months, we were really busy at the national office because something was going on in DC that a lot of people, namely the press, wanted to talk to any authorities when it came to the National Guard. So the past few quarters, we had the activation in LA, then we had the DC activation. So a lot of different people wanted to hear from the National Guard. And just to name a few of the different markets that we talked to between Elizabeth and I, we talked to NPR, NBC, the New York Times, the San Francisco Chronicle, USA Today, just a lot of different requests for talking points. And a lot of what we were telling the press was really preaching that the duty status reform, because you can have a soldier and an airman out on two different types of authorities, which means they're going to have two different types of benefits, and really sharing the story. And what really helped to share the story and connect Elizabeth with the information that she needed was, wouldn't you know, one of the guardsmen that were activated was one of our own, Chris Mitchke. And so he arranged for his command team to come down to the national office and they got to share their story. And you got to share a lot of what their Joes were saying of what's happening at home, what's happening with their benefits. And Elizabeth was able to package a lot of that information and put it out in bite-sized news bits to the people that were asking for it. So again, we can share that story of what's going on with our National Guardsmen. And again, big kudos to Chris Mitchke for arranging that, and just a big proponent of the association. So thanks again, Chris, for taking care of that. And hopefully you've seen through our social media engagements, not only on the Instagram and the Facebook, but our LinkedIn, putting more of a presence out there, more of a business presence, because as that last slide, as we're developing business relations, we kind of need that LinkedIn presence. So we're trying to take more of a stance on establishing our LinkedIn presence. Now, when it comes to our marketing side, I've been in talks with the folks at Still Serving Promos. You may have remembered them. We've used them before in the past. But looking at what we can do to maybe open up the EANGUS storefront back up again, but all it takes is time and money, right? And Elizabeth is developing a style guide on, if you're going to use our EANGUS logo, how to do it. So style guides are more of like fonts and how we're going to put together a product. Think of like AR 2550 or the tongue and quill, something along those lines, because if we're going to use the EANGUS logo, we want to make sure it's standard across anything. And to that point, for the states, if you're going to put EANGUS logos on any of your products, if you can just please shoot Elizabeth a copy of that in an email at elizabeth@engus.org, just so she can give the thumbs up on that. Because again, if we are having the EANGUS logo or the EANGUS name out there, we want to make sure that somebody from the national office is giving the thumbs up on that. And then speaking of Elizabeth, so going back to the military coalition, so Elizabeth is on tap to be their social media, to be on their social media committee. So again, it's putting EANGUS in that realm of the military coalition. So again, we're kind of in that forefront. EANGUS is getting pretty popular. All right, our next biggest event that we have on the calendar is, of course, our President's Workshop and our Legislative Summit that occurs in March. If you haven't signed up for that already, highly encourage you to go ahead and do that. And as a reminder, the national office is not setting up and arranging any hotels for any of the states to come in. And that was based on the conversation that I've had with the state presidents, that I believe at the National Association, we shouldn't dictate how the states are going to spend their money. So that gives states the autonomy to go out on the market and find the best deal that works for the state associations, whether that's going out and renting an Airbnb so your state members can all share the same space. But I don't think it should be incumbent upon the national office to dictate how the states are going to spend their money. So I just met with the state presidents last week, and based on their feedback, we're going to tweak our agenda a little bit for the state president's workshop. And we hope to have that agenda for both the state president's workshop and for our legislative summit, have those agendas out sometime soon. And with those agendas, hope to have those white papers out again sometime soon within the next week or so we can get that in the hands of the attendees so they can start reading up on preparing for it, have your office visits with your state's lawmakers. And if you haven't done it already, make sure that you're setting those appointments up with your lawmakers while you're in DC. It'll occur on the 24th of March. And we have just a 101 video out relatively soon. We had our legislative committee do a back and forth video, again, a 101 on what to expect when you're talking to your lawmakers, and just to give you kind of a general overview of what will happen on the 23rd and on the 24th. So look for that to come out sometime soon. and of course, our national conference. This year will be held in Daytona Beach, July 31st through August 3rd. As information comes out about our conference, I need you to pay close attention to it because it will be different than previous years. Starting off is the day range. So typically our conferences run Sunday to Thursday. This year's conference will run Friday through Tuesday. And that was just based on availability and the almighty dollar. So one of the other things that I have changed, because it's going to be Florida in August and it's going to be a little warm. So I've lowered the expectation for how people should dress, tamping down the suit and tie and the jacket, and opting for a little bit more comfortable, a little more relaxed, and there'll be themes. So when the call to conference letter comes out, and my goal is to have the call to conference letter out no later than the end of March. Pay attention to the different themes, and so you can start working on it. So those themes are going to be anywhere from your repping your state association, patriotic wear, maybe even a sports day, wearing different jerseys or even fire suits because we're in Daytona, rep some NASCAR. And then our end of conference dinner will be outdoors in the world famous band shell right on Daytona Beach. And because it's going to be outside in the elements, I am doing away with the requirement of being a formal event. So there will be no mess dress, no service dress, more of a relaxed atmosphere. And the theme for that will be island formal. And also, don't forget that this year is an election year. So we currently have nominations open for any of the executive staff. So that's your president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. So you can nominate for any of those. And of course, you have your EANGUS executive, your at-large director positions are also open. So you can go out to the EANGUS website now and put in your paperwork and self-nominate. And you too can be behind the podium at your next. And for 2027, California is looking forward to hosting the EANGUS National Conference. We hope to have more information out on the national conference sometime soon, but we can tell you, if while you're at Daytona and you're complaining about the heat and humidity, when you get to Palm Springs, you will forget all about the humidity. But we look forward to hosting everyone in 2027 and then again in 2031. But I thank you for your attention during this. Hopefully that provided you some updates on what's going on with your national office. And if you have questions, of course, hopefully you should have your area directors there. And of course, you can always email me at president@engus.org with any of your questions. But until then, we'll see you at the next event. Chief out.